Welcome back to Author to Author. On today's video, I'll be doing another exciting chapter reading. Before we begin, please like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you think of this book. This is The Ruler of the Galaxy, Hidden Point by Moses Solomon. This is part 1, The Shaman, in the year 1540 of the Cestian calendar. Morgan reached over the steering controls, pulled a small lever, and activated the little buggy craft's hyperdrive. Beyond the front window, the fabric of space sheared open like a gaping maw, revealing a grey void with pinpoint lights that whisked across the side windows. On the rear-view monitor, mounted on top of the dashboard, the streaking lights of the void disappeared into a tiny patch of stars in the distance. He reached down to the center console, switched on the autopilot, and released the yoke. Glancing sideways at Rayna, Morgan said, "Alone at last." Rayna unfastened her straps and wrapped her arms around Morgan's neck. He closed his eyes when he felt the warmth of her soft skin. She ran her fingers through his hair, which he kept barely short enough to avoid violating the military dress code. Her cheeks snuggled against his, and her dark, wavy, shoulder-length hair settled over his shoulders. She hummed a soft melody as she brushed a tuft of his dark hair from his forehead. He opened his eyes and gazed at her. 6 months was too long. 6 months apart while Rayna's cruiser, Poutin, escorted Alscrazian merchants through pirate-infested routes along the perimeter of the Great Nebula. 6 months of passing messages through the intermittent relays of the comm exchanges, while his cruiser, Ocelot, patrolled the Alscrazian border. That Morgan served under Rayna's father made things interesting. Captain Choff had never warmed to Morgan in the 2 years since he and Rayna graduated from the academy. When they began their assignments, Rayna had asked Morgan to be understanding of her father. At first, he tried, accepting any and every assignment given. But after the captain ordered Morgan down to the hot, cramped engine room to inventory spare parts, tedium appropriate for an enlisted recruit but not for an officer, and then reprimanded him for reporting back without changing into a clean uniform, all effort at understanding jettisoned out the disposal tube. Captain Chump reminded Morgan of a mercurial foreman he had once apprenticed under, who had favoured some while coming down hard on others. Though he worked hard and had risen to become second officer in a short time, Morgan felt certain that the tension existed because the captain didn't care for his only child's relationship with a guy from the working-class streets of Alscraz. Now, with both of their ships tied up at the same space fortress for maintenance work, Morgan and Rayna finally had an opportunity to go on leave together. The trip to Tootle, a nearby resort world of the far-flung Onglan League, would take a full day, except for a close passage to Volon, a sparsely populated planet the wormhole curved around. The trip should be uneventful. Rayna whispered in his ear, "Where did we leave off 6 months ago?" She gave his ear a gentle nibble, and Morgan's desire swept over him. He flashed a hungry smile, undid his straps, tossed them aside, and with them his shirt, and pressed her close. Her top fluttered to the floor, landing on top of his. Their lips met, and they pulled themselves out of the pilot's seat and down to the floor. A violent jolt rocked the spacecraft, interrupting Morgan and Rayna's climactic moment. "Docs!" Morgan cursed as an alarm blared. Nothing could be more annoying than to be stopped by a blown engine relay. But alone out here in space, anything more than that would be a real problem. Another alarm sounded as a mass of multicoloured particles streaked past the front window. A tremor shook the little ship, forcing Rayna to brace herself against the back of her seat. Outside the window, the layered folds of hyperspace collapsed around them, and a starfield settled into place. Morgan's mind raced. What kind of particle beam could break out of normal space? Checking the monitor, he saw the blue-green world of Volon come into view just as another beam, one that covered the entire width of the front window, fired from the planet. "Hang on, Rayna." The strike sent rough shivers through the craft. Who's shooting at us? Rayna checked the telemetry data from the shot. This was one mystery Morgan wanted no part of. The buggy broadcast no military signals, and to his knowledge, Volan was not advanced enough to build a weapon like this. He switched off the autopilot, took hold of the steering yoke, and fired the boosters to pull the craft away from Volan. Get the life suits! Rayna reached up and released the overhead compartment, allowing 2 bright orange emergency jumpsuits to roll out. She tossed Morgan's bundle onto the helmet hook next to him, and she quickly donned her suit, fastening the quick-action seals and hanging the helmet on the hook next to the side of her console. Can this buggy take all this? Rayna strapped herself into her seat and took the controls. Don't know. Morgan quickly zipped into his spacesuit and strapped himself back into his seat. Tatiki, he cursed, struggling with the steering. The handling stinks. I told you to take the Comet, Rayna scolded, instead of this piece of... A wide, twisting band of light, streaming all the colours of the rainbow, lanced out from Volan and smothered the front and the side windows, completely enveloping the buggy. A hot pink bolt of energy leapt out from a vent, arced across the instrument panel, and struck the back of the data monitors, shorting out 2 of the gauges in a shower of sparks. Morgan's hands jerked loose from the yoke as the bolt flashed through the steering column. He pivoted his head at the sound of Rayna's scream. Struck by the bolt in a blinding flash of light, she lurched into convulsions. Rayna! Rayna slumped in her seat, unconscious. A red alarm annunciator flashed on the dashboard. In the centre of the instrument panel, the gyro stabilizer erupted in a cloud of black smoke. A second later, the main engine blew out with a booming concussion that blasted the back wall, propelling a shower of smoke shrapnel through the cockpit. Shatik! Morgan cursed as he watched the planet spiral towards them. They fell toward the equator like a meteor. With one hand clamped like a vice on the steering gear, Morgan reached over with his other hand to yank Rayna's crash restraints over her, snapping the full-body harness over her regular seat straps. He hit the emergency signal to broadcast an automated distress code in all Imperial dialects, then secured his own emergency restraints. Stay with me, Rayna. Coaxing the last vestiges of power from the crippled engine, Morgan tried to steady the ship's descent with short thruster bursts and a steely hand on the yoke. Come on, he urged the buggy. Miraculously, the craft righted itself just before entering the upper atmosphere. Morgan fought to keep the craft stable as it glided down. Sweat broke out under his jumpsuit. On the front window, the fiery friction of the craft streaking through the atmosphere obscured his view of the descent. The automatic temperature alarm sounded an alert each time the cabin temperature increased an additional 5 degrees. Soon, the air started to feel suffocating. Morgan glanced over at Rayna. She lay limp under her restraints, her eyes still closed, her breathing remaining slow, though steady. With some systems on the blink, and others totally dark, he could barely maintain his precarious hold over the craft's descent. The buggy emerged through the clouds, and when the heat broke, the temperature alerts ceased. Bright sunlight gave Morgan a clear view of the landscape. A snow-peaked mountain range passed by below them. Beyond lay a vast forest. Keeping his eyes glued to the flight path ahead, Morgan reached overhead and switched on the automatic landing sequence. No data appeared on the ground tracking monitor, not even a beep sounded. He tried to switch again. Again, no response. He looked up and saw black scorch marks along the edge of the panel. Docks! The forest rushed towards them, and he drew in a deep breath to steel his nerves against the inevitable crash landing. Morgan gave Rayna one more glance. Her helmet was hanging out of his reach. He pulled his own helmet off its hook and slapped it over his head, the magnetic seals fastening. Now close enough to see individual trees whisk by, he tried to steady his breathing. His heartbeat raced as he guided them down the last few feet. The craft mowed down a line of treetops, the rough bumps jarring the ride down. Without warning, the trees gave way, revealing a formation of jagged boulders marking a break in the forest. Everything jumped with a loud concussion as the base of the craft hit the tallest boulder. The craft toppled at an awkward angle. That concludes the introduction from The Ruler of the Galaxy, Hidden Point by Moses Solomon. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this fantastic book. If you want to continue the story, please find the link in the description below. Also, while you're there, please give me a like and drop a comment. It really helps the channel grow. If you'd like to support the channel further, please consider following the link to buy me a coffee. Every little helps. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.